Okay, everyone. Thank you for jumping on this live stream with Jason Crowe. Hi there, Jason. Thank you for being on. He is the co-founder, if you will. Or would you say you're the lead of the development team for Qortal?
Yeah, I call myself the current development team leader because we will not be the only development team for Qortal. We are just the first one, right?
He is the
I hear the echo there.
Okay, let me back up, guys. All right,
Yeah.
First of all, this is great news that we heard this live stream is working, because this platform is now off of all conventional social media, other than there is a feed on Facebook. We were suspended for 3 days. So, we're just giving the people that are followers a last chance to learn about the platform we have, which is still able to get around the censorship that is literally crushing the alternative media, and especially health freedom advocates. So I just want to give everyone a 30,000 foot view. First of all, this is my third conversation with you, Jason. And it has been very exciting for our followers, because literally tens of thousands of people have been turned on to this concept that there is a way to get around what is now really a very dark time in terms of the internet basically crushing any alternative voice and spying on everyone. So right now, you are leading one of the projects known as decentralized internet, or the Web 3.0. So we're coming back to the conversation. I'm going to give people an update on what CNN just dropped and what the Biden administration said I'll just tell you right now. Basically, what the Biden administration said is that they will go around U.S. law and constitutional protections of its citizens by hiring foreign organizations, agencies, agents, so-called nonprofits to spy on U.S. citizens. And further, this process that you've all seen, which is trying to identify, target specific individuals like myself, Dr. Mercola, my wife, Kelly Brogan, and others, an attempt to continue to threaten, even dox, take personal information, release it. These are very dark tactics, and they're meant to intimidate people. And as of right now, right?
Yeah.
And this is a topic that Jason knows about. In fact, he co-created the Qortal decentralized internet for this reason. So you're in for a treat, guys. We're going to talk about the dark problem, shed light on it, but I also wanted to have the solution, because as I started to read this news today, even I get little bursts of anxiety. I'm like, okay, maybe I should go back out and do some exercise right now, because I'm not feeling very good about what's happening. Dr. Mercola, right, who has probably 4 million followers on his newsletter list, announced that he himself is self-censoring because of what's happening in terms of lawsuits about to drop, as far as intelligence agencies identifying those who speak out about vaccines as being terrorists, literally, and as being, international security threats. So what they're doing, therefore, is saying, listen, to protect the public, to protect the well-being of the world, we need to spy on these people, and we need to basically violate any remaining, sort of like civil right that you have. And so this is a really serious issue. It's First Amendment related. It's related to not just natural health advocacy and informed consent. Now it's basic human rights that are being thrown under the bus. So with that, and sort of as the context, I'd like to dig in with you, Jason. First of all, how does this topic relate to what you've been working on?
I mean, essentially, I almost predicted this kind of thing. Not exactly, right? But I predicted that these kinds of things would be more of an issue in the future. So when I saw blockchain technology and realized that an unstoppable ledger that is shared between everyone was really the future for all technology, then realized that there was no other platform that was capable of doing all the things that we are eventually going to need as far as communications and social media and stuff like that everyone uses on a daily basis, all applications really. We needed something that could run on a blockchain, that could be completely open and transparent and not able to be censored. And so we started development on Qortal. We started with another project called Quora that had a lot of the functionality. Then we basically completely rewrote that. And now we have the platform we have today, Qortal, that has all of this functionality. And We will be adding a whole lot more to it in the near future. Right now, we're just looking to get some early adopters, get people in, checking it out, helping us test it, helping us, check all the things and make sure that we're doing everything we should and that everything's working the way that it should. And so far, so good. We've got another version that we're releasing tomorrow that will address some other concerns and little bugs that we found. But overall, the development has been progressing very quickly. And I'm extremely excited with what we have now. We have communications right now that cannot be intercepted. That's impossible.
That's the next thing. Okay, first of all, for folks that don't already know, let me just share my screen for a second here. And let me show you basically this, breaking news around the Biden team announcing that they will start surveilling what they call extremists, which now, of course, include anyone who stands up for health freedom or asks a question or vaccine.
That could be pretty much anyone, right? Like they can just define you as extreme and then go ahead and do whatever they want.
Right.
That's what it seems like to me.
Well, exactly, because here, if you take a quick look at the quote, disinformation doesn't campaign by this hate organization that calls itself Center for Countering Digital Hate, where they've identified, targeted, and are asking basically for this hit list where they want to cancel and delete individuals, myself included. So this is a hateful organization that is actually identifying us as serious threats to humanity, dangerous, etc. And there's actually, I believe, an attempt to infiltrate the health freedom movement with operatives that are intelligence backed, backed by billionaires, and that are trying to make us look radical, associate us with militias and gun-toting crazies, just like we saw, if you will, with the Capitol, what happened there with some agent provocateurs mixed in with actual true believers, pro-Trumpers, is that they're trying to associate our movement with craziness and violence. And so that's what they're doing. They're projecting hatred on us. Now, this is what the Biden team is doing. Now they're using that, as a way to monitor extremist chatter online. They're literally saying, okay, some of the research firms and nonprofit organizations under consideration by the DHS periodically use covert identities to access private social media groups like Telegram and others used by domestic extremist groups. So we already knew that conventional social media was completely, weaponized against the user. Okay. Now we see even Telegram, which I've been telling my followers to go to here for about a year, is also being co-opted. And that's why this conversation about Qortal is so important. When I first met you, Jason, and I first started to understand what you had done with your developers and done without thought to profit, because this is a big deal, okay? Right. The founder of Ethereum today is a billionaire. And Ethereum is a project that some might describe as a Ponzi scheme because, they just issued all of
They did so many things wrong. So many things. They fail almost every single category of my list to prove a legitimate project. So
exactly. And I mean, the coins are at $3,300 and there's this huge rush of institutional money and it's like the exuberance. But when it comes to the fundamentals of the code, its vulnerabilities, its ethicality or lack of, what people need to understand is there is this thing called Qortal that has no PR department, has absolutely no money. That is, you used your own mining operation, which unfortunately got taken.
That was another thing that got targeted. Yeah.
So it's like my own process with Agreement Info. I did this as a passion project in my garage, after working a full day for years, just collating information. I never thought that would become anything but that. And same with you. You weren't looking, I'm going to have a pre-mine and an ICO and we're going to make billions of dollars. But that's
it was all about doing everything as fair as possible and giving every user the opportunity to get into that fairness and become part of the system and, be their own individual sovereign person in the system. It's really all about that. It's supposed to reward directly your input, right? So if you're doing more great things within the system, you're going to get more from doing that. And that's really the whole concept behind it, with a fair release, with a mined from zero at block zero completely. That's how it has to be, right? Like if you're not following all of these principles, everything has to be completely open source, completely decentralized. There has to be no pre-mine, no development tax or anything like that, where it's taking money from anyone to give to anything else. It all has to be done in a specific way. And that is why we had to do it from scratch, because there was nothing else really that was done that way. There's only a handful of projects that I could say that I believe are actually fully legitimate. And, you know, it's crazy how hard it is to find. You would think, oh, the crypto space, you think that these projects are all going to be doing what they say, right? Because it's a new thing and everybody's all into it and paying a lot of attention, but the people aren't really paying attention to the things that matter. And so if you actually get down to it, there are only a few projects that are really actually legitimate, in my opinion.
Well, let me give the viewers some of like additional like context support for what Jason's saying, because, you know, we've now had hours of conversation and there's been so many people that were turned on by our first and second interview. It's amazing.
Absolutely. I get people all the time saying that they saw the video and they're happy about it.
It's like love at first sight, right? Because the thing about Qortal that is so amazing, let's break it down to this, is that you have a system now where you can exchange information between peers without a third party sitting here spying or saying, you know what, I grant you permission to publish that, like YouTube or Facebook, but I deny you permission to do that. And then they're like hiding in this cloak of, you know, indemnification because of Section 230 of the CDA. They can just say, oh, we're not publishers, but yet they're constantly distorting. And that's why Qortal is so powerful. But Qortal is also a peer-to-peer exchange of value, which is how the word Qortal came about, right? Because it was a trade portal, or what exactly decentralized exchange, where you don't have to give up custody of your value just so you can trade with someone else across the chain. So say you have Litecoin and you want to go exchange it like in a marketplace with Qortal. You've created a system that allows a atomic swap or cross-chain transfer of value.
Yeah, we actually invented that terminology way before the atomic swap things were happening. Atomic cross-chain trade is where they took the atomic word from and took it and put it onto atomic swap. But yeah, the atomic cross-chain trade was actually the first cross-chain trade to ever happen in the world. And we actually did that ourselves between Burst and Quora many, many years ago. So yeah.
I hope the historical record memorializes this, because this is the point that I want to make to people who are, again, some of them making really amazing wealth creation through crypto. You know, it's a good hedge against what's happening with the implosion of the fiat system due to debasement of currency. So I'm not against even just the wealth creation preservation aspects of conventional crypto or, you know, fintech, but the dark energies of the old system have infiltrated. And in the case of Ethereum, right, it's proof
it's a lot of things. It's the centralized exchanges mostly, because they have now gotten their hands involved in that. And now the SEC and everything is regulating that just like they would regulate any other type of trading, like Forex, things like that, right? Because they have to trade, even if they're all the decentralized project by themselves. In order to trade with anything else, in order to get a market and have a value, they have to use a centralized service to do that, which means they have to involve themselves in being regulated and everything else that comes along with that. So we have removed every aspect of centralization from Qortal completely, including the market. So right now, with our Litecoin to court trading that we have now in the UI and built into the core, we have support for Litecoin. Yeah. We can trade directly between those two coins, two blockchains, no fees involved. You're not paying anyone to do anything. You're doing this all yourself and trading directly with another party, another user who has put up a sell. So it's literally removing all centralized aspects to every aspect of the project.
Let me back up again, because people don't know the language of this space, you know, the way you do and I do. So just real quick, because again, this isn't just about, you know, sort of like an alternative blockchain. It's going to connect to a number of things. I want people to understand that when I first got into this, I was excited because I found an individual and a community that had aligned their values with helping people preserve their value and not have it stolen. Or value can be defined in a number of ways. Let's say value is, I'm a social media influencer, right? I have followers. And everyone who's following me is saying, hey, you have value. But guess what happens after 10 years of being on Facebook? I have 550,000 followers. Facebook just toggles down the algorithm, and they've profited now from all of these followers, and they've distorted their feed so that now they're get upset at a certain political candidate, or they want them to buy something because they're eavesdropping on all of their information. That is really a dark thing that's happened. And I have unknowingly contributed to it because I was part of Facebook's early, you know.
And then you could just get completely deplatformed. If you're a social media influencer and you make your money that way and they deplatform you, they've then taken your income, your everything away all at once, right? Exactly. So it's really not, that should not be a possibility.
Yeah, because the social value, or let's call it like social proof, is a big deal. You know, when you go look at a product you want to buy, you want to look at the reviews. That is how we determine, okay, others like this or others dislike it. And what's happened, of course, is they've decided, the powers that be, you know, that people like myself who question vaccine safety or provide, you know, third-party evidence, even from government databases, that, yeah, actually there is harm being created and people should be informed so they can practice ethical medicine with informed consent. We're being targeted.
It's just obvious, right? Like that's just something that should be obvious. Yeah.
It should be, but then you see that, of course, all the major social media platforms, YouTube, Google, etc., have said if anything on the platform in any way disagrees with the World Health Organization's guidelines and statements, then it will be taken out. The unfortunate thing is that politics, and of course, in the case of the World Health Organization, when Trump removed funding from the US here last year, Gates was the #1 funder of the World Health Organization. So one private individual and his, you know, backers and whatever marionette strings go to the trillionaire class above him is able to control the information on the entire planet. That is why we're having this conversation, Jason. That's why I want people who are listening to share this while we still can, because they need to know about Qortal. Qortal is, first of all, unstoppable. A real blockchain, right? That's not private. It isn't just a bunch of servers in a specific farm in China, for example. You know, you can't manipulate it because it's not a proof of work substrate, which I hope you can explain to people in as simple terms as possible why Qortal is not like the other platforms out there, like Bitcoin and like Ethereum, or there's some similarities, but tell us.
Yeah, there's a bunch of different base level reasons. Essentially, we're following the original concepts of what the Bitcoin white paper put out to everybody, right? And that was that you, as an individual user, would run the information, run the software on your computer, and you could potentially be someone who signs the block into the chain and then gets rewarded for that, right? Like, and that's how Bitcoin works. You are a miner, you run this software on any computer, and you mine the coins. But it didn't end up becoming the way that it was supposed to be. It ended up to where now there are these machines that are about this big. They take about 1,500 watts of power running 24/7. And those are the only things that you can mine with if you want to keep up and actually compete on mining and actually be able to make anything of value, right? So
wait a second.
It's really...
So wait, the more power you have, the more money, the more equipment, the more Bitcoin you mine, the more transactions.
Exactly. So because proof of work works that way, you can directly just purchase a bunch of hardware, set up a warehouse somewhere with cheap power, right? And then you can become a huge miner, and that then eliminates anyone else, any normal user, from being able to mine on their normal computer or being able to mine on even a computer with a bunch of graphics cards. It's just not possible anymore to do that. So Bitcoin is now essentially owned by those people who can afford to set up massive mining operations. And I actually attempted to do that with $500,000 operation that was then shut down by another centralized entity, the power company. So the power company just didn't install the power. Then they did 6 months later, and by then it was too late. They set up another law, and we missed that, and it caused the rates to increase to the point where it's more expensive than if I were running it in my garage. So it killed the whole operation. Wow. And so that's the problem, right? Is that, yes, Bitcoin is decentralized on the surface. Yeah. But if you really get down to it, the mining is really not decentralized anymore. Right. Yes, it is. Okay. People don't get on my case about it because it still is. Yes. Okay. It still works the same way. But now it's just a bunch of big companies that are the decentralization, which is not really decentralization in my opinion.
Which is the ethos that just drives you, of course, and your community, which is decentralization. So the other example, which was supposed to be an evolution from proof of work, where again, the more mining equipment you have, the more power, the more you get actually. So you grow this disproportionate, distribution of power. Is proof of stake, where the more coins you own, the more voting power you have in the system. So
now there's an obvious problem with that one, right?
Yeah.
Like it's literally just the more money you have, the more money you make. Which is like the exact opposite of what we're trying to make happen.
And isn't Cardano and other projects that claim to be part of the decentralized internet, that's actually the system that they're employing. It's proof of stake.
Some sort of proof of stake or distributed proof of stake or delayed proof of stake or other kinds of proof of stake. Yeah, it's all some sort of proof of stake because they, the real problem is, right, and we're coming across some of these problems as we're building Qortal, is that it's very difficult to make something where any user could be the block signer like we have now and make it actually function the way it's supposed to. It's quite difficult, right? So it requires a lot of work to actually build something that would follow the original principles of Bitcoin. And that's, what we're doing. So it takes a lot of effort, and that's why
there's definitely,
it's
as
not very many
usual,
people doing it.
Jason, in comments, there's still people that are like, well, I have no idea what you're talking about.
I know. Yeah.
So let me just continue, and I'm going to have to try to translate some of these concepts coherently.
Sure.
So as I was saying, proof of work and proof of stake is the basis for 99.99, if not 100%, except for Qortal, of the projects in the blockchain crypto space. And there's probably almost 10,000 of them right now. The difference is that what you have created with this code base over the course of 7 years in total, when you take the original products or projects that were incorporated, is a different model where anyone gets a share of the coin that's created with low wattage devices as low as 5 watts, not 1500.
5 watts, 5 volts even.
Oh, 5 volts.
Running off a USB port. Yeah.
You can run it off a USB port, okay? That is so that it's basically a participatory value share system where it's called minting, where basically on the axis of time, you can't game the system, right? You have to participate and co-create the network, which is the actual new internet, by running a node off your computer. You can take a little Raspberry Pi device, which you've helped to create, which adds another layer of security. So this is radical, folks. People don't seem to understand, and it's because there is no PR. There isn't billions of dollars to go out there and say, hey,
I personally hate advertisements and stuff like that. So this kind of advertisement is really the only kind that I like, and word of mouth, right? Like, so we really just need to get that critical mass of initial users to where they get all excited about it and they start spreading it out themselves, because I really don't feel like putting up advertisements on billboards and a bunch of other nonsense like that, because it really should be so cool that it doesn't need that, right?
Well, that was Bitcoin. Bitcoin was contributed to the world anonymously, right?
Exactly.
Whether it was some white hat CIA or dark hat thing, that there's all these conspiracy theories around.
Yeah, there's a bunch about that.
And I'm not even saying they're wrong. I'm just saying it does not matter to me. Bitcoin is stateless, which it means those institutions that have a monopoly on violence that can take and kill you at their whim have nothing to do with Bitcoin at this point. You don't have to ask permission from a bank to transfer it. It is stateless, permissionless. It's revolutionary. So the people that are asking, oh, so is Bitcoin bad? It's not bad, because it's an on-ramp and an off-ramp, okay? It's an off-ramp from a highly predatory, toxic, and dying fiat system that's predicated on universal terrorism, discord, and disproportionate distribution of resources, okay? That's just the reality of what the conventional financial system is globally, and we're seeing that right now. That's why there's an off-ramp to Bitcoin, which is, again, non-inflationary. It's actually deflationary. There's only 21 million coins, and there's going to be less produced over time. That's why it's the new digital gold 2.0. But that is not what Qortal is. Qortal is more like a service coin, and ultimately, it's the substrate for, and this is the whole point of this live stream, ultimately, okay, with what's happening with the censorship and the literally criminalization of free speech, okay, on social media, is we have to have an alternative that is not governed by corporations or governments.
And that alternative cannot be centralized. It's the only way it's ever going to work, is it cannot have any centralized thing that they can target to regulate or to control. If it does in any way, they will do it.
That's why I say unstoppable. That's why it's so exciting to me, because if they took you out, they took me out, they tried to take out some of your anonymous developers, guess what?
Go ahead.
The blockchain is already distributed globally. In fact, how many nodes approximately are running Qortal right now?
Approximate nodes, I'm not entirely sure. The last minter count I saw, the highest number I saw was 1,200, I believe. Wow. So that's 1,200 minting nodes. On top of that, I'm sure you could add at least another 200 or 300 for just full nodes sitting there running, helping the network. Okay. So
that's huge.
It's huge. Yeah.
To even Bitcoin. When I first looked into the stats, I'm like, okay, Bitcoin must have 50 million nodes running. It turns out it's like 10,000. And then Litecoin is like maybe a couple thousand. It's amazing.
That was 1,200 or something last time. We're actually larger than Litecoin as far as I remember.
Yeah. So visualize the globe and visualize a mycelium, which is the internet of the planet. It's a fungal network, right? And it actually enables the communication of all life through this network. It's the original model for the internet, actually. This is what Qortal is. It's actually like an organic process of creating a healthy layer to what is right now ultimately run.
It doesn't take a shitload of power. It doesn't hurt the internet, or it doesn't hurt the world at all. Like to take huge amounts of power. You can do it with just a small solar panel and a tiny little device if you want to.
Yeah, because think about it. Bezos, all right, look at Gates, okay? These individuals together with Amazon Web Services and Microsoft Cloud and all these different, they are running the majority of the sites on this planet. They're hosting them. They can.
How many people host their own websites anymore? Like hardly anyone does that. It used to be back in the day, everyone would host their own website on their own little server in their room, right? And it was a fun thing to do for the techies to set these things up and set up their own email servers and fun things like that. But how much of that is actually going on now? Like it's literally nil. Almost no one does that anymore. I do, but I'm very rare in that.
Well, that's the thing is like Bitcoin started out at this amazing geeky thing, right? 10,000 Bitcoin for a pizza. And it was like this vision. And what made it valuable was the network effect, or Metcalfe's law, which is the value of the thing, the network, is the user squared. It's really just based on how many people get turned on, start using it, start having conversations, start developing bonds of trust.
I agree and disagree with that theory a little bit, but
no, we don't need to agree on anything. So I need to.
I do agree that the more users, in theory, the value should be higher, but it's really also more about the more correct users, like the right users, the ones that we actually need, with the ones who are going to see ahead, see what we're trying to accomplish, and really start helping us get there, right? Like, because any normal user could sit there and run a node and not do anything and not help us. That really doesn't give us any more value, right? But if we have the users who come along like you and want to help me get the word out, or want to help with financial things, or want to help with any of that kind of stuff, that's going to help us grow a lot faster, right? Because then our development will go quicker. Everything will go quicker at that point. So I agree that the larger the network is good. But
No. It's perfect, because I was applying this like quantitative AI-like model that the more numbers you can mathematically fit, the better it is. And that's crap, because the qualitative aspects are what you're referring to. And that's what drew me to this project. I'm a good example, right? I met you. I'm like, you know what? I want to support the project. Let me go ahead and buy the coin at least. And name your price. Like, I want to support the project. I don't want the market price. I want to give more than it costs. And then I donated some equipment.
And now the market price is almost double where we set that initial price. So
and then I had no knowledge that that would happen. I just knew that I love this project so much. I want to empower the developer in Nigeria that literally has a solar panel.
Now that's the kind of people that we're looking for, right? Like anybody, even if it's not financial assistance, that doesn't matter. It's really like, do you have anything? Any sort of skill that you could use to assist us in making this platform larger and more accepted by people and more understood, stuff like that, right? Because any just normal user sitting there running a node, that's fine. That's cool too, but that's not going to help us really. We need the people with the brains and with the finances and with the stuff that can actually help us to get this moving like further and faster and bigger, right? Like, so I get the whole theory behind that theory, but I don't necessarily agree with it in all regards.
No, that's why I love you, man, because you're someone who has always understood how to communicate the ethical impulse. I mean, it's like this radical thing. Sometimes I'm like, you're like, forget about all conventional finance. And I'm like, okay, it's a bit extreme.
I'm like, right now I'm completely debanked. And I'm like sitting here going, I'm like, I kind of like that. I kind of feel like I like that better.
Well, it's radical. Well, but here's the thing, folks listening, is that what's happening right now with conventional crypto projects, okay, on the blockchain, and there isn't one blockchain, there are hundreds. Some of them are private and weaponized and fiat, and there's two people controlling it. And then there's public ones like this that are unstoppable, that are being co-created by a developmental community. And those like you and me who have decided, you know what, I'm going to install this on my computer and I'm helping to participate. Well, what's happened is that they have the regulators are now requiring exchanges to have what's known know your customer and anti-money laundering, KYC and AML. That will basically force those exchanges to take your private data and associate it with all your activity. Because finances are an instrument of surveillance and therefore can be weaponized against you and are weaponized against you. We know that the IRS has been used as a political tool since Obama, and there's all been examples of this. We just need to be aware that that's where crypto's moving, and that's why this project is radically different. There is no ask for you to give up any of your private information at any
and
point,
people
right?
constantly are asking me, oh, when are we going to get listed on Binance? Oh, when are we going to get listed on Coinbase? When are we going to get listed on these other centralized services? And I say, we will never, as the development team, reach out to these guys and ask them to list us. Now, if they take it upon themselves to do it, there's nothing we can do about that. But this is not a goal of Qortal. We do not need them, so therefore, why have them? I mean, I get it on a base level, but it's really not necessary. We have trading working just fine without any of them.
Yeah, it's so multidimensional because there are those who look at this project, they're like, you know what? Ethereum right now is at $3,300. And on a code basis, if you compare it with Qortal, it's really sad because this is an inferior code base. So why wouldn't the coin be worth $1,000 right now? $2,000, maybe it's the next Bitcoin. So there's that aspect, and then
they started with massive backing. They started with over $25 million in funding, and did an ICO and got even more fun. It's just you can't really compete with that in the traditional sense. We're not doing things that way. So it's totally different.
That's what people need to understand, Jason, is that in this platform, when you run a node, you are basically able to exchange your coin with someone else without anyone in the middle getting in the way, capturing the data, being able to steal your coin. That's what's so radical. When I listen to other thought leaders talk about the decentralized web, that is the future. It's being built out where there is no third party that we now have to be vulnerable with and dependent on. It's all about direct, sort of like it's the way nature works, biology works, is it's open source, network, distributed, and there's an exchange horizontally of information and value. And that's how biological systems work. Of course, they've wanted to brainwash people into thinking, oh, everything's in the nucleus, a couple, 2% of the protein coding genes are, running the, little marionette meat suit that we are, but that's not how things work. Anyway, for the people that are really into this topic, I want you to understand that this is the future of social media. That is why we're doing this right now, because in the context of global deplatforming and everywhere you step, Twitter, Discord, Rumble, whatever the alternative, choice is.
If it's centralized, it's owned.
If it's centralized, it's owned, and it's not based on a code base of 7 years that's probably worth $1 billion that is able to provide the backbone for true privacy of communication.
If somebody who can read the code actually looks at what we have, every single one of the people who's looked at the code comes back to me very, very excited and says, holy crap, this can do so much more than it's doing right now. And I'm like, yeah, well, that's the whole point, right? Like right now we're demonstrating with a few plugins of what we can currently do. And with that, we can also then go, yes, we also have the capability in the back end to do this, but we just haven't developed the front end plugins for that or the other functionality in the back end that's necessary to make it all work, right? So right now we have a demo of a communications application that if you're doing a private message between another user, there is absolutely no way that any other person can read that message between you and that user. Not possible at all.
This is huge. Now, there's the one caveat, which you and I have talked about, and I want you to explain to people, that in this day and age, if you have a private encrypted communication, the physical hardware can keylog, it can eavesdrop, it can screen record almost anything. So therefore, there is another layer to what you and developers at Qortal have done, which is create a hardware that is open source, but yet not hackable. And that's like next level. So I just want people to understand more about this community and what you're doing.
Yeah, the unhackable part comes in with the blockchain, because the blockchain has the verification and the security aspects of everything. It's just what handles all the cryptography, right? So with your account on the chain, nothing that we use the chain for to verify can then be modified by anybody else other than you, right? So yeah, and as far as the hardware goes, nothing is technically unhackable, but it's open source from the ground up, the hardware level up. So that means there's no built-in spying technology like there is in every single Intel and AMD newer CPU that exists. And none of that stuff exists. So we can then take and build our unhackable network on top of this hardware that's completely open source. And then you have something that cannot be spied upon, because since it's open source and all these developers are developing on it, they would probably figure it out if somebody was trying to put in something that would then spy on you, right? So Linux, the Linux kernel with an open source hardware platform like a Raspberry Pi built with an ARM CPU, which is all open source from the hardware level up, you're pretty confident at that point that Bill Gates isn't sitting there recording everything that you're doing. So that's, that's really the point, is that everything open source from the hardware level all the way up. And everything that needs security being utilized on the blockchain to obtain that security, right? The security and the authentication for all the users is handled with a distributed database that's then also open and everyone can access it, but it's also extremely secure based on all the cryptography.
I want people to understand that the SHA-256, security protocol, our algorithm, is the same one, as far as I understand, that protects even nuclear munitions.
Oh yeah.
Right. So this is the top level type of security that is operative.
And we have a bunch of different algorithms that we actually use in Qortal. SHA-256 is definitely used for the accounts process right now, but we can, because of how flexible the platform is, we could actually modify that algorithm and make it use another one if we needed to in the future, because people are all worried about quantum computing breaking SHA-256. If that did happen, we could then modify which algorithm we use and just change it. So it's not, we can use any secure algorithm essentially, and we use a bunch of different ones already inside of Qortal.
Okay, a quick announcement. I meant to say this in the beginning. Like, here's an example. Someone's already trying to download maybe the Windows installer, and right now there is a problem with the Windows installer, right?
Well, the thing that she's seeing here, that the old Windows installer is still available on the website. That right there is Google's attempt at blocking developers who are not registered with Google.
They do that with Human Info, yeah.
Right, yeah. So anything that you download that says that, it's just, all it is that the signing that's not there on that exe from the developers is just non-existent, right? So we didn't sign it. It's still definitely a legitimate file, and you can just tell it to keep in most cases. You can say, I think it's more info and then keep, and you'll keep the file. If it doesn't work, try downloading it with another browser. That's another attempt at these guys at centralizing the control with only a handful of developers that they trust. Now, why do we care who they trust? I don't know. But you should be able to download whatever you want, right? Like, even if you are downloading a virus, you should have that right. But yes, the installer is totally fine. It's not infected or anything. If all it's doing there is telling you that it's not digitally signed by a developer that they trust. So you can usually just say more info and keep, and it should allow you to download the file. If you have any other issues, jump in our Telegram, and we can definitely help you out with that.
It's amazing. I've watched you for now, 4 months on a day-to-day basis, all day long, answer thousands of just questions like this. Like, you are what I mean, again, I see a reflection of myself and you in my early stages when that's all I did, but I'm amazed, guys. This guy's for real. This is a real thing. And I am very grateful that and
even issues, right? If people come across issues and they bring them up, I say, yep, okay, I'm glad you found this issue. Pass it along to the development team. We'll get it taken care of. You can't expect that a platform that's written from scratch, that's completely brand new technology, cutting edge technology, is going to come out the gate and be perfect. That just doesn't make any sense, right? So we need this group of people now, the people who understand where we're going with this, to help us in finding bugs, testing this, making sure everything's working as we say it should. Making sure, and that's what our Telegram group has been great with, and our Discord server is full of awesome people. We are building a fantastic community, and so I really want the right people to come in. If you guys are not the type who want to install a program and expect it to be perfect, if you want to have a perfect running program, then it's probably not the best time for you to come into Qortal. But if you want to help us to get this platform built out to where it is perfect, then you're the type of person that we want in the community right now.
That's a really good point, because I want people to understand that actually, because this has happened to us too, we can have thousands of people get interested in something and then it just becomes really muddled and confusing. and it's true. What Mike Winner, another co-founder, had said in our first interview is that this is not right for everyone, because the old model was, if it's for free and it's convenient, guess what? You're the product, okay? If you're not paying for it, like all the Google products, it's because they're taking your data. They're literally watching you, and then that is being used to profit and worse. In this case, this is about taking personal responsibility for your future, like your health, okay? If you want a better health, if you want a better world, well, then you can join this community when you're ready. It's going to take a little bit of a learning curve, and you're going to want to install it. And then you start.
This is cutting edge, brand new technology. Like blockchain is new to begin with, right? And we're at the cutting edge of blockchain technology. So this is something that, yes, we've made it as easy as we can make it for now. It'll get a lot easier in the future. Our UI is already easier than almost every other blockchain I've ever seen.
Wait, what is a UI?
The user interface. So what you actually interact with and see is very, very simple. To create an account, I've not had anyone have any issues creating an account. I've not had anyone have any issues finding things once they're pointed to them. It's really, really straightforward, right? Like we've made it all as simple as possible. The installation process is somewhat not simple and not straightforward for certain people and on certain platforms, but we are there to help you get through that, and we will absolutely do that. I've made multiple videos on how to install on Mac and things like that. So yeah, it's really like you've got to put a little bit of effort into this, because this is a new technology and this is a completely cutting edge thing, right? So you've got to be willing to put a little bit of effort in and get set up. But once you do, I've not seen anyone who got set up and got running, and even if they had issues, they said, oh, F this and left. No, they are here for the long term. The people who are there, they love it. They love the concepts. They love the project. They love what it can do already. And it's barely just getting started. Like what we can end up doing with this is going to be completely incredible.
Well, what I love about this too is the barrier of entry is, again, trying to like get in with the community. Like you install it, you try to figure that out, and then once you're there, you have this, like, again, $1 billion code-based trade portal that enables you to do what, decentralized finance is a multi-billionaire space right now, because everyone wants to do what you guys have already created. Right. So now once you're in and you've installed a node, you can then buy the coin, but you have to buy Litecoin maybe through Coinbase, and then you send it to the wallet.
So since we can't deal with anything centralized, it's not like we don't deal with anything centralized because we really can't. Because we wouldn't anyways, right? But it's built that way. We are made so that we're not able to deal with anything centralized. So we cannot touch US dollars or anything that's a centralized currency. So you have to get into a decentralized one. Right now we support Litecoin only, but our backend and everything else supports multiple different Bitcoin clones, and we will be adding multiple other coins in the very near future. But Litecoin right now, you have a Litecoin wallet inside of your Qortal wallet. You just send Litecoin to that wallet, then you can use that wallet to directly trade with the other users on the trade portal. Yeah,
that's helpful. Again, it's so interesting because there's like this one layer. I know people that are like, I just want to buy the coin because I know it's going to go skyrocket, like, 2.0. There's truth to that. And it is true that with real price discovery, because almost everything is manipulated right now in terms of prices, right? Look at silver.
Ours is not.
On a daily basis, silver, the total amount of silver that exists on this planet is traded in paper form. It's all derivative. It's fake. It's not related to what's actually the underlying asset. Whereas in this case, you can't do that. It was designed. You can't game the system, right? And therefore, the actual ownership of the coin and the hodling of it, will drive the price up so that the developer community can afford to put more time and energy into the project. So one way to do this, right, is to just own the coin, hold it like you would with Bitcoin or anything else, because you want to support the project. There's another way, I'm going to just post this here, is donations to the development fund, because the developers that are working on this, like we were talking about, some of them are literally in places in the world where they don't have power or even running water sometimes. And they are geniuses that are trying to contribute to the betterment of humanity with this project. So when people send, as I have myself, and I will again, Litecoin to that address, it goes and is split between the active developers in the community. And there's discussions on Discord about this. You can learn more how that works. And that's a great opportunity for people that just want this new internet to be born. Now, I want to go, because I have another maybe 25 minutes here, back to the original topic, because because this is huge, guys.
Yeah.
Telegram is, by the way, there's a weird story around it. You know, this guy, Durov Pavel, was a Russian. He created the Facebook equivalent, and then apparently got run out of Russia because he didn't want to give them their data. That's at least the official story. They tried setting him up with some fake, you know, like hit and run, and he ended up leaving for Dubai. But in 2017, he became a world young ambassador for the World Economic Forum. Okay, the very globalist powers that have helped to set into motion this pandemic, right? Through Event 201 in New York City, 2019.
I didn't know that.
Right. And so we know that, yes, he was probably a multi-millionaire, if not billionaire, and he was using his own funds. But recently they raised, I think it was like 500 million of some, we don't know the source of the funding. And the reality is that this is a centralized thing that wasn't designed to protect the data from being captured, whereas your system was.
I mean, anything that's centralized, whether it's encrypted and centralized or not, it has the potential to be intercepted because it's centralized, right? Like, and they can say all day long that everything is completely secure, but I just don't believe it if it's a centralized thing, right?
Exactly. Because you have to trust others, which, again, we love human trust. It takes years, generations to develop trust in another human being. But if you can use this system to remove that third party, so it's trustless, right? That's the whole point. It's actually meta trust. That is the good side of the AI, if you will, the algorithms, the blockchain, because I'm the guy that interviews Alison McDowell and explains to the world that the blockchain is one of the most dangerous weapons that has ever been created. That
it totally is.
Right? They're trying to turn it into a type of enslavement you couldn't even imagine with programmable money. We're down to every little bit of value. They're going to tell you what you
But every technology could either be used for something good or not, right? And that's, you know, that's why, you know, with the base level founding principles, which I wrote the original paper that outlined how Qortal would be designed, right? And I came up with all of this based on my personal experience in multiple years in the crypto and blockchain space, seeing the things that I don't want to see in a full awesome project, right? So I took all of that knowledge that I had over since about 2013 and made it into a paper, and took that paper and started developing Qortal with the team and the amazing developers that we have, right? And so, and now we're to the point where I am very, very pleased with the product that we have now, and what it's going to be in the near future is going to blow people's minds.
Great. And this gentleman's asking for an executive summary. I think someone wrote a white paper, right? That's available.
It's not. There's not technically a white paper. I don't call it a white paper. It's just an explanatory paper that will give you all the details you'd like to know. It doesn't go into the very low level tech details because who really wants to read math equations and stuff, anyways. So, but yeah, we have that paper that myself and another founder, G Factor, put together, and that paper is a great explanatory paper that tells you all you need to know about the project.
Where can they get it?
I need to find the link.
Discord.
I will find the link. Yeah, the Telegram Discord. There's links pinned there.
So here's the situation, guys. Okay, Qortal's backbone, right? The skeleton has been worked out and is being worked out right now. The stability has increased. We have a massive global community that is providing the substrate for this to be unstoppable, okay? Because think about it. If they don't like us speaking freely about facts that the government databases have on, say, vaccine injury, what do you think they'll do when they find out there are projects like this that you can't even get in and spy on people? They're going to identify it as a national or international security threat. That's what they want to do. Right. But the beauty of it, like Bitcoin, is it is unstoppable. Unless you turn the power off and identify and take out all of the mining equipment and all the nodes. Good luck with that. You're going to have to turn the internet off and take power away, go search people's homes. You can't do it. And that is why the more people that get on board and start helping to co-create this network, it is truly going to become the alternative and the means by which we create a non-deplatformable, non-censorable, non-surveillable alternative to the crap that has literally taken over the world at this point. They just censored the active sitting president. Whether you hate Trump or you love him, they did that in broad daylight, along with hundreds of thousands of other accounts at the very moment that the elections were in question. That is beyond illegal, unethical, unconstitutional. And so, because
apparently they don't care about legal or ethical anymore. It's just like whatever they feel like doing is what happens.
And they're showing us in the past 2 years, they've shown us that there is a group of individuals that are transnational. They have no allegiance to a particular soil or nation state that will do whatever they want openly. I mean, they would literally communicate to us openly that they are aligned with what you might call Luciferian rituals and agendas. I mean, look at what happened with this Nas X with his Satan shoes with a human drop of blood inside. This is Nike sponsoring this, or any halftime show at a Super Bowl, and tell me that there isn't a Luciferian agenda they're trying to project out into the world openly. That's what's going on. And we see it in so many ways with the draconian health policies, the masking that is not based on a shred of evidence. This is all about them revealing that the systems that we've relied on, especially social media, are absolutely toxic. And if we continue to give our energy to those systems, that's why I thank God that I've been deplatformed, because I am
right. That's why I'm feeling with debanked too. I'm like, yeah, I kind of like this better.
Exactly. It's the same thing. Now, I've met a man who has a community that is very big, that has found a infrastructure, a solution, the plumbing and the rails for this new world we want to live in. And that is why I'm so excited about this, because I could be sitting here right now thinking, oh, poor, Dr. Mercola is being attacked personally, and I am too, and I don't know what to do. Should I just try to go off the map and live in Costa Rica or something? No, it's about standing where you are, stand for health freedom. Those who've taken action, please go join us there, please, as well. It's about creating the very thing that we want. Let's become adults and not be like, oh, daddy, government and mommy medicine are giving me what I want. How about we become adults and we create with effort and trial and error the thing that we want to exist in this world? So, so Jason, can you just give the viewers, because we have a few more minutes, a visualization of how we could build a Telegram or Twitter, Facebook functionality off of Qortal, and what's the path?
Yeah, right now, as far as building a Telegram replacement, QChat is essentially already that. We just have to add a little bit more to it to be able to pin messages and to be able to do voice and video communications, which we will be adding that here in the near future. We have concepts already designed and ready to be built. Right now, we're literally just making sure that the network is stable, right? We need the network to be completely stable first. Then we can start designing out adding new functionality to the things that exist and adding new things that do not exist yet, and making that part of the platform, right? So right now, QChat is text-based communication, just like Telegram. It does not have the voice and video part of it yet, but it will, because there is a way to do serverless WebRTC communications without IP addresses that we can also implement. So we will have all of the functionality that Telegram has, I would say, within a few months of being stable, right? Mm-hmm. The main key right now is getting the network completely stable. It's much closer now with version 1.50. It's much closer than it was before. And I think with version 1.51, which we're planning on doing an auto update for tomorrow, which is another thing that no other blockchain can do except for us. And we will now probably, hopefully, have what I would consider 95% network stability. And if once we have that, then we can focus on new features. So I do not like to really think about the next new features until I know that we can get them there, right? So right now, the focus on stability is definitely a thing, but we can very easily take QChat and turn it into a Telegram replacement with a few added functions, right? All we really need is, even if we just had audio calling at first and the ability to pin messages, I think that's pretty much it, right? So we already have the ability to do group communications. We already have the ability to do PMs that cannot be intercepted. And that's basically all Telegram is, right? Just groups and PMs, right? What else is it? I mean, other than voice and video calling, right? So yeah, all we have to do is add voice and video calling to what we already have, and we have Telegram.
Well, here's the things, folks. You know it already because you've seen it in the past year. The agenda is for every single thing on this planet and every single person to be identified digitally and tracked nonstop, 24/7, down to penetration of your body, either through non-native EMF surveillance or actually nanobiocolonization. If you think that that is sci-fi or conspiracy, take a look at what DARPA's already invented with quantum dot hydrogel systems for monitoring their soldiers. And that's arguably part of what they're doing with the vaccine rollout. So this is happening. So every single thing that you do is surveilled 24/7. It's tied to your vaccine status. It's tied to programmable money, central bank-backed digital currency. You are going to be living in a digital gulag, okay? China was the example. They created it. They're saying clearly this is what they're going to try to roll out. This is one of the only solutions that I have found that will hedge against that possibility, that will enable them to realize that they cannot penetrate into the recesses of our hearts, minds, souls, and our desire to communicate freely with one another without having a third person in the room or the rest of the world forever after, because they're immortalizing this information into a dossier. They're doing digital twinning. It's like a gamification, and they're creating entire new capital markets based on betting on our behavior. I mean, it is insane what they're doing. Yeah, it's really, Alison McDowell's work on this has been incredible. So believe it or not, Jason, you are like in the Matrix, like a Neo type character. It's true. Created an alternative space of protection that is now, like we said, it's unstoppable for those who want to snuff out.
My focus has always been individual sovereignty and the ability for each user to maintain that while also being able to do the things that they want to do on the internet, right? Like that's really all it is. Like, yeah, it sounds simple. Yeah. And it was definitely surprisingly hard to build, but we are well along the way, and I am quite pleased with where we are for just under a year post launch. So it's still very early for people to get in as early adopters or for people to get in and start helping us out. Yes. Any developer can come in and help. As an example, right now, our main core lead developer was actually not part of the original founding team. He came in afterwards, and he has been a godsend, and he has been amazing. And so without him, we would not be anywhere near where we are today. So that's just a perfect example of why open source and all the things that we do for the reasons that we do them are built that way, right? Like, so anybody can come in and help us out. If you want to directly help and you're a developer, by all means, communicate with me and I will get you involved, because that's what this is all about, is getting everyone to work together.
I want people also to just see the juxtaposition. Okay, you have Klaus Schwab declaring to the world what's going to happen next, right? You're not going to own property. Basically, you can't, everyone, the collective owns everything, right? And you're going to be surveilled and all this. This is the other iteration of no one owns Qortal and everyone owns Qortal. Right? It's the
That's really what's supposed to be, like, by the people, for the people. Isn't that supposed to be what this was all built around, right?
That's it. Exactly. The code itself contains the ethical impulse, and that's what's not been the case when all of these big tech corporations emerged, most of them in the belly of the military and DARPA, right? The Advanced Military Research Agency. They were not thinking about fairness. They weren't thinking about privacy. Quite the contrary.
Right. That's never even part of their talking, I'm sure.
No, exactly. This was exactly.
They don't care about that.
And so so that's why it needed to be recreated from scratch, de novo. And that is what essentially Qortal represents. And the beauty for people that don't understand, this is open source, meaning the code base is given to the world for free. Anyone can look at it, inspect it.
All the effort, all the time that so many people have put into this over the years is all available for anyone to use and do whatever they want with. Yeah.
Jason could have become a billionaire just by saying, all right, I'm going to create my own private company and we're going to make this proprietary and we'll do the Gates thing and work with the NSA and have a backdoor in the software and the hardware. And we're going to just take over the planet and we're going to ingest other smaller companies and spit
Sounds like fun, I guess.
Right?
No.
If you will, more of what is like a, it's like a priest's vow of poverty on some level. And the initial
it was on a real level there for a while. Like I was kind of worried about not having a place to live for a minute there. Yeah,
I hear you. And so, to a degree, I have a similar story with Greenman Info. I was always in debt, and I was just trying to find a way to pay hosting fees. And then my developer, I think he literally sold blood at one point, and he was holding off. Like he had, spent the equivalent of probably $200,000 of time coding Agreement Info. And I was like, all right, let's try to monetize this thing. I just give up. I can't do a nonprofit. I don't have the money to, found a nonprofit. And it all worked out because there was enough support. Enough people realized, wow, this is good for the world. It has value. I want to support it. And that's why I'm more excited now about this than I am GreenMedInfo, you know?
Well, we'll eventually rebuild GreenMedInfo on top of Qortal and make it a completely open, available thing for everyone that's unstoppable. So yeah, that's the potential for the future of Qortal, is literally being able to host your exact website on top of Qortal and making it completely unhackable and able to be shared with everyone without anything, you know?
Well,
yeah.
This is it. Two things. First, the impulse was to reach out to you because Mike Winter, our colleague for years, was talking about this thing, Qortal. I'm like, okay, Qortal, whatever. Exchange. Is this thing even real? You know? And then I met you and I realized, wow, you know what? I had this dream too. I was like, you know, GreenMedInfo is being deplatformed. They want to take it out. They've always wanted it to die. Why don't I just put it on a blockchain? It's the world's now. You can have it. It'll never be taken away, because the beauty of the blockchain is it's like the Akashic record. It's forever there. Can't be taken out. So I had a conversation with you. I'm like, oh my God, this is exactly who I want to work with, because you're creating the infrastructure for this. Number two, you've created an alternative to the domain name server system, which is
that already exists too. Yeah, the name registration that's there right now will be used for domains on Qortal in the future.
What does this mean, folks? GreenMedInfo, I could wake up tomorrow. In fact, my own team did a joke on me one day, and they had this like FBI announcement that said, your site has been seized as a national security threat. They did this like 5 years ago, and I was just like, oh, okay. And what they can do, they could seize Coinbase.com and take all your Bitcoin tomorrow. They could seize GreenMedInfo.
Easily,
right? And I would not be surprised if in a year they don't do this to the people they've already identified, like myself, who supposedly are spreading all this misinformation, creating all this death in the world.
Truth, Sorry about that.
But you've already created a system. You can register your name on the blockchain, and that is your location, and you own it. No one can take it from you. And that is incredible. Like, people don't realize.
You can actually sell those names in the future too. So it does work in a similar way to the domain name system, except the fact that the name just doesn't exist until you make it exist, right? So it's not owned by someone else and you're buying it from them. You are literally creating that name out of thin air, making it part of the blockchain, and then you own it. Then because you created it, you obviously created it first. There's no other person who can make a name that's even similar by trying to trick it with a lowercase I and L and stuff like that and make it look the same. That doesn't work either. You can't trick the system. So yeah, you create that name from thin air. You essentially buy it from the system and you own it. Then you can later sell it if you choose to, or whatever you want to do with it. It works as a username and a domain name.
Well, that's why it's so exciting, because Qortal is this substrate that is owned by no one, of course, and everyone, but doesn't mean it doesn't support free enterprise, and you can build anything off of it. It's like Cardano has a 300, the founder employee company, where they also have this private aspect to it. So it does feed the free market and innovation and entrepreneurship. But the base layer, what I love about this, Jason, is I think about indigenous peoples around the world. They could not comprehend how an individual or a corporation, which is like a vampire, right? You can't kill it. It can be a felon. It can kill, and it still survives, can own the resources that we need to be human: air, water, food.
Right.
That is what this is. This is the new layer of the, if you will, Aquarian transition. This is how we survive this event right now, which is a totalitarian takeover.
And we're not even really directly targeting anything at all. All we're doing is providing an alternative solution that will be available. And if people want to use it, they can. And anybody who joins and starts putting money from the fiat system and converts it into court and holds it there, you're going to be safer there than you would be in the fiat system when the eventual collapse obviously takes place.
I love it. And Sarah, you totally get it. I mean, like, it's the thing is, like, when we had our first interview, this reminds me of it.
Yep, exactly. Children's future. Yep.
I mean, they just get it. This is really about providing, like, the internet has been a godsend. In fact, we wouldn't even have a chance if it weren't for the fact that as they take us out here, we dip and weave, because the internet, you can get around things. Now they're doing everything in their power to stop that. And by the way, guys, part of the next agenda, the next shock is going to be a cyber pandemic. They've already announced it. They're going to probably do some false flag and say, oh, this nuclear reactor was attacked, and now you need to prove your identity to sign in, probably with the QR code tied to your vaccination passport, your social credit score, to log into the internet, because it's so dangerous and you can be used as a weapon that you can't have access to it anymore. But that's what they're going to try to do. Do you get it? That is
Wow.
right. They already said they were pretty much.
Well, eventually we don't need those gateway providers to the internet once this thing actually gets to a point where there are enough people nearby to connect to a mesh network. So
Bam.
yeah,
Tell them about it.
Yeah, we are eventually going to be creating what's called a mesh network. Now, where you can shoot an antenna on your roof and it will broadcast the signal out. Then anyone else nearby can connect to that signal, and you no longer need the gateway providers to the internet. Now, that's the only centralized thing, that and GitHub, which we're going to be replacing with a GitHub replacement we build on top of Qortal. But those are the two things only that are required to use Qortal. The internet gateway provider is the last one that we need to get rid of to make sure that we have complete and utter sovereignty and separation from all of that.
Do you all understand how amazing this is? I heard about this years ago. It's like you could take a router and you can do like a community network that is an alternative. Obviously, you need the primary connection, but with the cell phone infrastructure, you can ride off of, and with satellite, ultimately, Qortal is designed so that there will be no dependency, no kill switch that can take out our ability to communicate on a planet-wide basis with one another and share value with each other. This is so.
We already have some concepts for putting a couple satellites up too to do communications across oceans and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yes. When I first heard about this, and by the way, you've got it set up too, because again, anyone who has a minting account, right, which requires a human sponsor, which is as easy as going into the community and saying, hey, I found out about the project, I'd love to be sponsored. You can.
And really the sponsorship is just to make sure that the network grows slowly, because we want it to grow more slowly at the beginning. And that was really all it's about. It's just making sure that it grows on a slow pace.
Hallelujah. I'm the same. Evangelical. This is like the good news, the gospel. I mean, seriously. Because what that basically means is you can mint coin, which was the original idea behind Bitcoin, create value out of nothing by participating. At the same moment, you're participating by co-creating this mycelium network of the new internet that frees everybody. And you will be able to, over the access of time, to be leveled up so that you get a greater share in that coin. And this is the potlatch, the egalitarian model of prosperity and wealth is actually the ability to share more. It's just
given out to everyone. Yeah. We want to just drop coins on everyone who helps us out. And that's it. We're not like trying to make debts. We're not saying that you have to pay these coins back to us later. Like, no, none of that nonsense. We're flipping the entire model on its head. And same thing with Bitcoin, right? Like they have a cap to the total amount of coins. I don't see that really playing out in the long term other than digital gold, right? Like, so Qortal does not have a cap on the total, but it does have a very slow release schedule. Last time I checked, there's 1.9 million Qort in existence only. And so that's about a year, just under a year. We have 1.9 million only. So you can see how slow the release schedule is, and it continues to slow down until it gets to 2 coins per block. So it's really going to be interesting to see how the markets affect to all this and how it goes. Yeah.
I love this model so much because, there's a real constitutional argument, which I think is winnable. And the Supreme Court would support this, that the internet, right, as defined by Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, is a forum. It's a commons. And by law, there used to be situations in early industrial revolution where wealthy business people would literally own the city that their worker lived in. And when they'd go out in the forums or the public squares, they would be assaulted or attacked or killed. And there were rulings that made it clear that that is not acceptable. And this is the digital equivalent. So we should have a right for this. But no one's building it, to my knowledge, but Qortal. Now, there are other projects. I think there's an interplanetary file system, which would enable storage, which you can get to before you create your own version. But I want people to understand that the ecosystem that's emerging and has been is ready to take people like you and I and really move this forward. But it does take people understanding this and sharing it and getting. I mean,
it's a new technology. Any new technology, you have to take a minute to actually figure it out, right? There's new terms you've never heard of. There's words that we've made up. And there's things that, literally, like we've made up a bunch of these words, right? Like, so you guys have to just understand what these things are. And it's really not that difficult. We have a lot of totally diverse people in our community that are from all walks of life, all age groups, and everyone's been able to figure it out. As far as I know, like no one's come in and said, I just can't do this. Like, so, and even if they did, I'd probably be able to find a solution for them even then. So it's really like, it's not that hard. It just requires a little effort, right? And your effort will be greatly rewarded when all of this stuff gets to fruition, and it will, because it's absolutely necessary.
You're all doing it right now. The people participating, people that will share this. And I only have a few minutes before I have to take off myself, but let me just, thank you. Just lay it out for people. What's actually the next step here that I see, Jason, correct me if I'm wrong or right, but because the next step in the evolution of Qortal after the stability is set is the voting system among other projects, is that what will happen is as a Qortal member, right, or as someone participating in the network, you might decide to open up like your own chat or have like a page location when it's ready.
Absolutely,
and then, right? When someone likes that, I mean, they may decide to give you court for it, or you might end up getting more.
Yeah, in the future, I do want to reward good content, right? Like, and to define good content, we can just say the people who voted on this content and said that it's good, as long as they're leveled members in the community and they voted on it, then that could provide the basis of another algorithm to reward those people for providing good content. Yeah.
So that's why I wanted to point out, it's like an ecosystem. So there's a branch that will be the social media that, let's say, you collect all of these followers who value your content. That value could be quantified so that it might help you to have more voting in how the system evolves. But you didn't just get it because you had more power or money. It's because people in the system, the ecosystem said, listen, I trust this person. I want them to be a leader. Let's help to co-create the next step of the evolution of this platform. There's so many branches like that, right? This can
and there will be multiple different ways to level, or different leveling types, leveling account types in the future, right? Like right now, minting is the only way, because we needed to grow the network. We needed to establish a network. We needed to get the minting going, because that's what moves the blockchain, right? So minting is the only way to level up right now in the system, but that's not going to be the only leveling method that will ever exist. There will be multiple new leveling methods coming out as we develop the next stages of the platform.
Beautiful. Well, we just scratched the surface, and I know we went meta, so we got people excited. So I want people to understand, like, if I was just coming to this project and I'm like, I want to be involved, I think what initially I would do is go to Qortal.org and just look at the basic information. And then you can install a node on a Mac or a Windows. There's tutorials. And there's the community on Telegram, the tech support channel. There's the Discord community where you can start looking.
Our community's great. So any questions you have, just ask them. Even if you think they're stupid questions, you'll get an answer and you will get taken care of. Yeah.
Am I got the vibe on there? I mean, for 4 months, I've been thousands of comments. I don't see trolls or people that are like trying to be mean. I mean, sometimes people are just kind of, just being themselves, but I'm impressed. It's really a community. So then if you want to install a node and you want to, actually own coin, then you can do so, again, through your own initiative. It's not like you go to an exchange, you give them your information.
Right.
And you just pump some money in.
I have a few simple ways to create accounts for people who just want to create an account and then buy coins. And we can help that out directly on a case-by-case basis. But most of the time, you're going to want to install your own node. You're going to want to be part of the network so that you can experience every aspect of what the platform can do, right? Because if you don't run your own node, you can't experience all of the different things that you can eventually do on the platform. So it's better to just make sure that you set up your own node. It doesn't take a bunch of power. It takes a simple computer, and then you have access to everything. So
beautiful. Awesome. Well, listen, everyone who participated, thank you for being here. I'm excited if you're excited, and thank you for your time, Jason. And
thank you.
I see you all the time on the thread, so you guys can go reach out to him and his colleagues to get some support on this. And we'll be doing more follow-ups, because this is definitely going to be the future of the internet as far as I can understand. So
absolutely, man. Yep, thanks.